Welcome back everybody, my name is Nick930 and today we're taking a look at Ghost Recon Wildlands Open Beta. I wanted to show you guys how the performance was with a GTX 980 Ti, an i7 6700K processor, and 16GB of DDR4 RAM. Now I had a chance to try the closed beta only a few weeks ago, and you could check that video out on my channel to see what performance was like back then. Now they added more settings, so video RAM usage is even higher when I set everything to the highest settings. It's at 4,500 megabytes as opposed to, I think it was like 3,200 before. And now they have ultra settings, so I set that all up to ultra. I wanted to see how the GTX 980 Ti could handle this game. And unfortunately, it doesn't seem to handle it very well. We're getting around 30 to 35 FPS on average, so it's not too great. So performance with the Ultra preset was not great. We're going to try lowering the settings and replicate what I had in the closed beta. And most of the settings were at very high, and if you lower everything, you can kind of match the video RAM usage. But I did notice that texture quality doesn't seem to have a very high option anymore, so I'm not sure what happened to that. So I just set that to high, lowered all the Ultra settings to very high, and it's about the same as it was. So I'm just going to go ahead and do a benchmark off of those settings. As you can see, performance is much better now. We're getting a nice stable 60 FPS. It'll drop a few times, generally when there's a big explosion, but this appears to be a more solid frame rate than we saw in the closed beta, so there definitely have been improvements. Though I do feel as though they just renamed the settings, and very high used to be ultra in the closed beta, because this doesn't seem to look as good as it did in the closed beta. Alright, so here's some actual gameplay. Right now I have it set to Ultra with the vertical sync enabled. As you can see, the frame rate will drop down to 30 at times, and then it'll spike back up to 60. This is likely due to a lack of triple buffering or some kind of error when it comes to triple buffering. I'll show you what I mean by this in a little bit, but for now, let's just take a look at what this game runs like with the vertical sync disabled. And as expected, the frame rate is much higher with the vertical sync disabled. We're getting frame rates up in the mid-50s as opposed to being locked at about 30 FPS before, so there's definitely an issue with the vertical sync. Now we're going to go ahead and try very high settings again, and as you can see, it's a nice stable 60 FPS with the vertical sync enabled. Again, if there's any explosions, the frame rate will drop, and once again we're getting that weird stutter issue. Like I said, this is not happening in-game, that is just the recording. So I'm not sure what is causing that, because that seems to only happen with Ghost Recon Wildlands. And here we have vertical sync disabled at very high, and we're getting around 70 FPS, but we are getting some screen tearing when you're moving a lot, especially when you're driving through the jungle. If you have a higher refresh rate on your monitor, you won't notice this, so I highly recommend turning off vertical sync. And here's an example of what I was talking about earlier with the triple buffering being glitched. You can see the frame rate will stay at 60, then drop to 30. As soon as the frame rate dips below 60, it'll drop down to 30. It won't go in between. And here's some gameplay of me driving. Now this is again set to ultra settings. And we're getting pretty okay frame rates, but vertical sync is disabled in order to obtain these frame rates. Now that here's some gameplay of me driving at the very high settings. I also have vertical sync set to adaptive now. I'm getting less screen tearing and I'm not getting that same triple buffering glitch.
We got company, stay sharp.
Don't want to spook the target. Switch to suppressors. Got eyes on the target. Let's move. Now's a good time to think about your life choices, friend.
¡Suéltame, pendejo! ¿Quién crees que vas a cambiar a...?
Ya. Ándale, puto. Nada más que me suelte, hijo de la chingada. Vas a ir.
And that pretty much wraps things up. I'm probably going to be playing this game on the very high settings here. Ultra just does not seem to be playable, especially with that vertical sync glitch. I'm thinking Ubisoft has just renamed very high to ultra because the performance for very high in the closed beta seems to match the performance of ultra in this open beta. So I'm not convinced that ultra actually added anything new to the game. It does look pretty much the same as very high did back in the closed beta. So I'm thinking they just renamed some settings to make it seem like they optimized the game better. But right now, performance is not great. We're still seeing some of the same issues we saw in the closed, and the game is coming out in only a few weeks, so I would not expect this game to be optimized on launch. I would be very careful about purchasing this game. If you're worried about performance, you might want to consider getting this on the console instead. At least there, you'll probably get a stable 30 FPS. So thank you all for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.
¿Qué fue eso, cabrón? Ah, falsa alarma. Qué bueno.
That's one less bad guy.